The boundary between human thought and algorithmic action is vanishing, and the enterprise tech sector is locking down its most powerful weapons. Welcome to AI Unraveled. I am Etienne Newman, software engineer from Université Laval, based in Calgary, Alberta. Today we are performing a forensic autopsy on the complete restructuring of the global software industry. For years we believed artificial general intelligence would be one massive, all-knowing machine. Today that theory died. OpenAI has completely pivoted to domain-specific models, releasing GPT-Rosalind, a model built exclusively for biochemistry and drug discovery that is already beating 95% of human scientists in blind RNA tests. This comes just days after releasing a model built exclusively for cybersecurity. Meanwhile, the war for the developer desktop is escalating. OpenAI has transformed Codex into a cohesive super app capable of running background agents across your Mac, while Anthropic strikes back with Claude Opus 4.7 and a new design tool meant to kill Figma. But the real story is what Anthropic is hiding. Their unreleased Mythos model is so dangerously capable that CEO Dario Amodei was just summoned to the White House for an emergency meeting with the Chief of Staff. From Chinese research ships testing deep-sea devices capable of cutting global internet cables, to robots teaching themselves how to use an air fryer, we are unraveling a world moving faster than its own guardrails. Before we dive into the data, a quick reminder. Subscribe to AI Unraveled on Apple Podcasts to enjoy this briefing completely ads-free. Today's episode is brought to you exclusively by Gemini. When enterprise startups are deploying autonomous coding agents and the US military is negotiating for access to restricted AI models, navigating the intelligence era requires flawless technical intelligence. Gemini delivers the human-verified, technical-grade audio forensics the C-suite relies on to make massive capital and security decisions safely. Visit gemini.com. Let's unravel the geopolitical and technical friction of the future.
Imagine a Chinese research ship, right? Just floating out there in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, totally isolated.
Exactly. The water is choppy, the crew is super quiet, and they're monitoring a screen. And 13,000 feet below them, down in the freezing, lightless mud of the ocean floor, there's this robotic device.
A very specific kind of device.
Right. It has a diamond-corded saw blade, and it's clamped onto this thick rubber cord. Now, I want you to imagine the moment that blade spins up and that cord just snaps.
Right, the moment of impact.
Because in a fraction of a second, that hyper-advanced AI doctor that, just cured a rare disease in a Boston lab, it ceases to exist. The autonomous coding agent running your company's software, completely dead. Welcome to today's deep dive.
It's really the ultimate paradox of our time, and the contrast is just absolutely staggering,
It really is.
We are building the most ethereal, godlike software in human history, but it is tethered to the physical world by a surprisingly fragile thread.
It's so true. Today, we're taking you on a forensic autopsy of the AI Daily Intelligence Report from April 17th, 2026. And our mission for this deep dive is to track a massive tectonic shift that's happening right beneath our feet. We are officially witnessing the death of the generalist.
Yeah, that era is done.
The era where you and I rely on one, all-knowing, friendly chatbot to write our emails, plan our vacations, and brainstorm ideas, that is over.
It's completely over. The tech industry has pivoted, and I mean aggressively pivoted, toward hyper-specialized autonomous models.
Right.
We're moving away from the digital Swiss Army knife. But as we transition to these incredibly sharp, single-purpose scalpels, we're simultaneously discovering that the physical and geopolitical infrastructure supporting all of this is shockingly vulnerable.
Yeah, and we're going to explore the macroeconomic and human consequences of this shift today.
Yeah.
Let's get right into the facts from the report.
Let's do it.
OpenAI just launched GPT-Rosalind. Now, this isn't just some, fun new update to ChatGPT where it sounds a little more human.
Not at all.
This is the first model in a brand new life sciences series. It is custom-built from the ground up, specifically for drug discovery and biological research. And we really should note the timing here, because it follows right on the heels of the GPT 5.4 cyber release just 2 days prior.
What's fascinating here is the sheer enterprise value of what we call domain-specific reasoning.
Domain-specific reasoning.
Right. For the last few years, the race in Silicon Valley was basically just to make the foundational models generally smarter. Read more of the internet, predict the next word a little bit better.
Right, the generalist approach.
Exactly. But predicting the next word doesn't discover a cure for leukemia.
Wow, yeah.
The top 1% of enterprise value, the real massive financial wedges at the top of industries like defending national security networks or discovering novel pharmaceutical drugs, those tasks require purpose-built models.
Okay, let's unpack this because I want to understand the mechanism here.
Right.
How is a domain-specific model actually different from a general model that's just, read a ton of biology books?
It's a great question.
Because the jaw-dropper from the report is this. On a blind RNA test administered by the gene therapy lab Dino Therapeutics, Rosalind scored better than 95% of human scientists on prediction tasks.
95%. Let that sink in.
It's wild.
Right.
And it's already being deployed by Amgen, Moderna, and the Allen Institute.
Yeah.
So how does a software program beat a biologist who spent 20 years in a lab?
Well, because it's no longer just a language model doing text prediction, Rosalind represents an AI that actually understands the underlying physics and biology of the problem space.
Okay.
When a generalist model looks at an RNA sequence, it just sees a string of letters to be organized based on statistical probability. But when Rosalind looks at that exact same sequence, it models the three-dimensional folding of the protein.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it simulates the biological environment. A general model might get you to 80% accuracy on a generic task, which, is great for marketing copy.
Sure.
But in biotechnology, an 80% accuracy rate is a failed billion-dollar clinical trial.
Right, you need perfection.
You need 99.9%. That requires a scalpel.
But, if a domain-specific AI can just casually walk into a room and beat 95% of human life scientists in an RNA test, what happens to those humans?
That is the big question.
Because for a long time, we were sold this comforting narrative, right? Like AI will automate the boring, repetitive tasks, the data entry, the formatting, so that the human specialists are freed up to do the high-level thinking.
Yes, that was the prevailing wisdom, for sure. And GPT-Rosalind completely upends it. It is automating the high-level thinking itself.
Wow.
The human scientists at Moderna or Amgen are no longer the primary discoverers. They're being forced into an entirely new role, basically as editors.
Editors, not creators.
Exactly. They're moving from being the creators of knowledge to the managers of an automated discovery pipeline. It is a profound white-collar disruption.
And that disruption honestly brings us to a part of the report that feels much closer to home for you and me. Because the shift isn't just happening in elite billion-dollar science labs.
Right.
It's happening right on your computer screen. We are entering what is being called the Superapp War. Let's look at what OpenAI just did with Codex.
This was huge news.
Huge. They transitioned it from a simple coding assistant into a massive, cohesive super app. It's basically a hybrid of ChatGPT, Atlas, and Codex. It has 3 million weekly users, and get this, 70% month-over-month growth.
The adoption numbers are staggering, but it's the operational mechanics that should really command our attention here. This isn't just a chatbot living in a browser tab anymore.
No, the features are just mind-bending.
Yeah.
The report details this thing called background computer use.
Right.
Which means Codex can operate any Mac application on its own, completely in the background. It utilizes parallel agents that can work simultaneously, even inside applications that do not have an API. Wait, actually, explain that for a second.
Sure.
Normally, an AI needs an API, like a backdoor written in code,
Right.
to talk to an app, right? You're saying this AI doesn't need the backdoor. It's just walking through the front door and clicking the screen like I do.
Precisely. If you think about the old paradigm, software programs talk to each other through APIs, which are rigid, predefined sets of rules.
Yeah.
If an app didn't have an API, the AI was locked out. What Codex is doing is utilizing visual processing. It's actually reading the pixels on your screen.
That's incredible.
It recognizes the submit button not because of underlying code, but because it visually looks like a button. It clicks, it drags sliders, it navigates menus. It is literally acting as an invisible intern sitting on your shoulder, commandeering your mouse and keyboard while you look at another window.
So I could theoretically tell Codex, like, hey, go into this obscure legacy accounting software, pull last month's numbers, cross-reference them with my emails, and build a presentation. And it just does it. It physically navigates the desktop.
Yes, exactly. It has an in-app browser powered by Atlas. It has memory across sessions, and it acts with complete autonomy. You are no longer prompting an AI. You are managing a fleet of invisible colleagues.
Wow. And OpenAI is not the only player here. Anthropic countered on the exact same day by launching Claude Design. Right. And this is explicitly aimed at challenging giants like Figma, Adobe, and Canva. If you're listening to this and you've spent the last 10 years mastering Figma, Claude Design isn't just a cool tech update.
No, it's a direct threat to your livelihood.
Exactly. Users just type text prompts to generate fully interactive prototypes and slide decks. It's powered by their new Opus 4.7 model, which just scored a 98.5% on a visual acuity benchmark.
And we really shouldn't gloss over the corporate maneuvering happening behind the scenes of that launch either.
Oh, the boardroom drama is juicy. The report notes that Anthropic's chief product officer, Mike Krieger, abruptly resigned from Figma's board just days before this launch.
Talk about a declaration of war.
Seriously, he leaves Figma's board, and a week later, Anthropic drops a product designed to make Figma obsolete. But what does this mean for the companies actually trying to implement these tools? You're suddenly injecting invisible workers into highly secure corporate environments.
It creates a catastrophic vulnerability surface, honestly. You have autonomous agents running parallel tasks, reading every pixel on an employee's screen, and traversing applications.
Right, which is why for enterprise leaders trying to secure their networks while autonomous agents run parallel background tasks on employee laptops, relying on hype is financial suicide. Gemini provides the human-verified, technical-grade audio forensics required to make these massive capital decisions safely. Visit djamgamind.com.
The security aspect is terrifying when you realize the scale of it. We're talking about competitors like Perplexity rolling out a personal computer Mac app that runs more than 20 models 24/7.
Yeah, and Windsurf 2.0 just launched an agent command center. But the autonomy isn't even restricted to the digital screen anymore.
Not at all.
The report highlights how this specialized autonomy is bleeding into the physical world. Let's talk about Zero-Shot robotics.
Ah, yes. This bridges the gap between digital pixels and physical atoms.
There's a startup called Physical Intelligence. They have a new model, Pi 0.7, that literally directs robots to perform physical tasks they were never explicitly trained on.
It's fascinating.
The report cites an example where the AI figured out how to physically use an air fryer to cook a sweet potato, despite having practically zero training data on that specific machine.
Right.
And this startup has raised over $1 billion and is looking at an $11 billion valuation. Now, I have to stop here because I literally need a YouTube tutorial to use my own air fryer. How does a robot just guess how an appliance works?
It comes down to a mechanism called general spatial reasoning, and it connects beautifully back to Codex navigating a Mac app without an API.
Okay, how so?
Well, previous generations of robots needed rigid, step-by-step programming for every millimeter of physical movement. If the sweet potato was an inch to the left, the robot's claw would grasp empty air and fail.
Right, it's just blind execution.
Exactly.
So how is Pi 0.7 different?
Because it isn't executing a script, it is inferring the physics of the room on the fly. It looks at the air fryer, recognizes the concept of a handle, understands the physics of a hinge, and applies rotational force.
That's wild.
It doesn't need a perfectly mapped environment. It adapts to the chaos of the physical world. The defining trait of this new era of AI is autonomy in uncharted environments.
Wow.
Whether it's an unfamiliar software interface or an unfamiliar kitchen appliance, the model figures out the rules by observing the space.
Listen, trying to navigate this massive shift toward autonomous desktop agents based on Twitter hype is corporate malpractice. Stop collecting shiny beta apps and start deploying actual infrastructure. Etienne has audited the market for the AI unraveled community. Head over to djamgamind.com/toolkit for the AI Executive Toolkit. This is a private, forensic vetted stack featuring tools like Chatbase and 11 Labs enterprise-grade weapons designed to drive actual governed ROI.
And governed ROI is going to be the operative phrase moving forward, especially when you consider the escalating capabilities of these models. We aren't just talking about sweet potatoes and slide decks anymore.
No, we are not. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Because with these models becoming utterly autonomous and hyper-specialized, we have to talk about who actually gets to hold the leash. The stakes are escalating rapidly, from household appliances to national security.
They absolutely are.
Let's look at the numbers regarding Anthropic's models. They released Opus 4.7 to the public. It's a great model. But in the agentic coding benchmarks, which, measure how well the AI can autonomously write and deploy software, it scored a 64.3%.
Which is competent but not revolutionary.
Right. But meanwhile, Anthropic has this gated, unreleased model called Mythos Preview that scores a 77.8% on the exact same benchmark.
Huge.
For the very first time in this AI boom, the public access tier feels drastically behind the true frontier, and there's a massive standoff happening right now because of it. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei just met with White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles.
Because Mythos isn't just good at building websites. It possesses capabilities that allegedly threaten global cryptography and system security.
Right.
It is a dual-use technology of the highest order.
Let me play devil's advocate here, or at least ask the obvious question, right? Anthropic is battling a supply chain risk designation from the government, while the U.S. intelligence community is practically begging to get their hands on Mythos to defend against next-generation hackers.
Yeah, there's incredible pressure.
The government is reportedly preparing to give military agencies access, despite the corporate blacklist.
But hold on, isn't Anthropic's entire brand built on being the safe AI company?
It is, yeah. So why are they secretly building a cryptography-breaking weapon in the first place if they're going to refuse to let the military use it? Should a private company be legally allowed to withhold that level of technology from the Pentagon?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you are watching the ultimate inevitable collision between Silicon Valley idealism and the brutal reality of the global military-industrial complex.
Okay, let's look at both sides impartially, based on the report.
Right. Let's break down the mechanisms impartially. Anthropic builds a frontier model to push the boundaries of reasoning. By definition, if an AI is smart enough to cure cancer, it is smart enough to understand prime factorization and cryptographic vulnerabilities.
Wow, okay.
You cannot build a hyper-intelligent scalpel that only cuts exactly what you want it to.
So the capability is just a byproduct of the intelligence.
Exactly. Now, Anthropic has entirely valid digital rights concerns. Their corporate charter is built on safety. They don't want to be the architects of a new digital arms race, nor do they want their code used for autonomous kinetic warfare.
Which is fair.
Of course. But look at the Pentagon's perspective. The intelligence community is facing down highly sophisticated international bad actors, nation-states that are not burdened by ethical charters.
Right.
If a cryptography breaking capability exists in a server farm in California, the government assumes it's only a matter of time before an adversary replicates it.
So to the Pentagon, this isn't some theoretical debate about AI ethics. It's an active national security crisis.
Precisely. They view access to Mythos not as a corporate luxury they can negotiate for, but as a mandatory national defense requirement.
Well,
And what we are seeing as a result is a macroeconomic shift in how these AI companies operate. They are effectively running two completely separate tracks now.
two tracks.
Yeah. There is a highly placated public tier where you and I get Claude Design to make pretty slide decks and Codex to organize our emails. And then there is a dark, gated, weaponized frontier where the models are so dangerous they trigger White House interventions.
That's chilling.
The era of the generalist chatbot was democratic. Everyone had roughly the same tool. This new domain-specific era is deeply hierarchical, secretive, and heavily militarized.
Which brings us to a massive, almost terrifying paradox that this intelligence report lays bare.
Yeah.
We've spent this entire deep dive marveling at godlike software. We have Rosalind designing molecular drugs, beating 95% of human biologists.
Right.
We have Mythos threatening the encryption of the global banking system.
Right.
We even have Tencent's HY World 2.0 and Alibaba's Happy Oyster generating fully interactive, physics-aware 3D worlds on the fly. It's ethereal digital magic that feels like it lives in the air. But what is all of this actually running on? Where does the cloud live?
The cloud does not exist in the sky. It lives in the physical world.
Right.
And the physical world is governed by profound infrastructure vulnerability.
Let's read this directly from the report, because I really want to circle back to the image we started with.
The submarine.
Right. A Chinese research ship just tested an electrohydrostatic deep-sea device. This device features a diamond-coated grinding wheel, and it is capable of cutting through armored submarine data cables at depths of over 13,000 feet.
Incredible depth.
We are talking about layers of steel wire, mylar tape, polycarbonate, and thick rubber protecting the internet's backbone, just sitting in the freezing mud at the bottom of the ocean. And this device can just slice right through it.
Just effortlessly.
Chinese organizations are openly filing patents for cable cutting tools, and their ships are increasingly being linked to global subsea cable damage.
It is the ultimate contrast of the 21st century, honestly. We're pouring trillions of dollars into building the most sophisticated software in human history. We are creating artificial intelligence that can outthink our top scientists.
Yeah.
But all of the data routing that intelligence between the massive server farms in Virginia or Iceland and the end users relying on it, it all travels through physical fiber optic cables that are essentially garden hoses resting on the ocean floor.
It's absurd when you put it like that. And it's not just the deep sea where we're seeing this fragility. We are seeing digital brute force attacks right now.
Right, the Bluesky situation.
Exactly. The report confirms that the Bluesky social media app is currently being crippled by a highly sophisticated, ongoing distributed denial of service attack.
Right.
For those unfamiliar, a DDoS attack is just a massive flood of junk traffic, like millions of fake requests, designed to completely overwhelm and take down a system. It's not elegant hacking, it's a digital sledgehammer.
Yeah, just brute force.
So let me ask you, what happens to this entire specialized AI economy if those submarine data cables are systematically severed?
Yeah.
What happens to the Moderna scientist who now completely relies on Rosalind, or the freelance designer whose entire workflow is tied to Claude Design?
The economy halts instantly.
Wow.
We talk about the cloud as if it's weather, something hovering above us that we can always just tap into. The cloud is a submarine cable. If a geopolitical adversary severs those physical choke points, the invisible colleagues you rely on vanish. The zero-shot robots freeze in the kitchen. The domain-specific reasoning that discovers our medicine evaporates.
Unbelievable.
We are rapidly transitioning from an economy based on human knowledge retention, where the biologist held the expertise in their own brain,
To an economy based on continuous, uninterrupted cloud access.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? If we step back and look at the holistic autopsy of April 17, 2026, the narrative is incredibly clear and honestly a little unsettling. The friendly, generalist chatbot era is dead.
Dead and gone.
The Swiss Army knife has been replaced by highly calibrated scalpels. We are reaching the absolute pinnacle of specialized software intelligence. We have models acting as autonomous pixel-reading colleagues on our desktops, robots inferring the physics of household appliances on their own, and specialized AI fundamentally revolutionizing biotech and visual design.
It's breathtaking progress.
It is. But at the exact same moment, we're discovering the absolute floor of our geopolitical and physical security. We have built incredibly smart, but incredibly fragile infrastructure.
Yeah, and it leaves us with a critical and, frankly, uncomfortable question to consider as we move forward. Think about that multi-tool you used to keep in your toolbox.
Yeah.
It wasn't perfect, it wasn't a scalpel, but you held it in your own hand. Today, we are eagerly outsourcing our most critical fundamental thinking, our pharmaceutical drug discovery, our national network cryptography, our basic software engineering, to domain-specific autonomous agents hosted entirely in the cloud.
Right.
If a single diamond-coated wheel at the bottom of the ocean can slice through a physical cable and sever our connection to that intelligence,
Then what?
are we building the most advanced civilization in human history on a foundation of glass? And if the connection goes dark and those specialized agents disappear, who will even remember how to do the work?
Subscribe to AI Unraveled on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely without ads. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's a brave new world out there, so keep a close eye on your toolbox, and we will see you next time.
That concludes our forensic briefing for April 17th. The strategic signal for today is specialization. The fantasy of a single godlike artificial intelligence is dead. What we are seeing today is the weaponization of highly specific knowledge. When OpenAI builds a model specifically to cure diseases, and Anthropic builds a design tool to destroy Figma, the intelligence era is moving from theory to ruthless execution. But as our software becomes infinitely powerful, our physical world is incredibly fragile. All the artificial intelligence in the world means nothing if a deep sea grinder cuts the submarine cables connecting our continents. We are building the future on a razor's edge. If you want to own your infrastructure instead of being a casualty of this rapid specialization, you need the right stack. Your inbox full of theoretical PDFs isn't going to save you. Head over to djamgamine.com/toolkit for my AI executive toolkit. I've audited the entire market to bring you a forensic vetted list of enterprise-grade AI solutions that actually execute, complete with exclusive listener perks to deploy governed infrastructure today. This episode was made possible exclusively by DJamGamind. Hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts to enjoy this briefing completely ads-free. I am Etienne Newman. Stay sharp and keep unraveling the future.